Welcome to CHF Informations. Historically, the majority of prostitutes have been women, and the majority of clients have been men. Prostitution perceptions are based on culturally determined values that differ across societies. Prostitutes have been viewed as members of a recognized profession in some societies, but shunned, reviled, and punished with stoning, imprisonment, and death in others. Few societies have treated clients with the same severity. In fact, in many societies, clients face few, if any, legal consequences. Prostitution has been required of young girls in some cultures as a puberty rite or as a means of obtaining a dowry, and some religions have required prostitution of a certain class of priestesses. The ancient Greeks and Romans required prostitutes to wear distinctive clothing and pay heavy taxes. Prostitution was not prohibited by Hebrew law, but it was restricted to foreign women. Several of Moses' ordinances for regulating public health dealt with sexually transmitted diseases. Church leaders in Europe attempted to rehabilitate penitent prostitutes and fund their dowries during the Middle Ages. Nonetheless, prostitution thrived. It was not only tolerated, but also protected, licensed, and regulated by law, and it generated a significant amount of public revenue. Throughout Europe, public brothels were established in major cities. Profits were split between the city of Toulouse and the university in France. In England, bordellos were first licensed by the bishops of Winchester and then by Parliament. Stricter controls were imposed in the 16th century, owing in part to the new sexual morality that accompanied the Protestant Reformation and Counter-Reformation. The dramatic increase in sexually transmitted diseases was equally significant. Sporadic attempts were made to close brothels and even implement medical inspections, but such measures were ineffective. A variety of changes in Western societies in the late 19th century rekindled efforts to suppress prostitution. Many people saw male libertinism as a threat to women's status and physical health as feminism grew in popularity. In Protestant countries, a new religious-based moralism was also influential.
Anti-prostitution campaigns flourished from the 1860s, often in association with temperance and women's suffrage movements. International cooperation to end the traffic in women for the purpose of prostitution began in 1899. In 1921, the League of Nations established the Committee on the Traffic in Women and Children, and in 1949, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a convention for the suppression of prostitution. In the United States, prostitution was at best sporadically controlled until passage of the Federal Mann Act, 1910, which prohibited interstate transportation of women for immoral purposes. By 1915, nearly all states had passed laws that banned brothels or regulated the profits of prostitution. Prostitution remained illegal in most Western countries after World War II, though it was unofficially tolerated in some cities. Many law enforcement agencies became more concerned with regulating the crimes associated with the practice, particularly theft and robbery against clients. Authorities also stepped in to prevent young girls from being forced into prostitution, white slavery. Prostitution is illegal in most of the United States, but it is legal in some Nevada counties. In most Asian and Middle Eastern countries, prostitution is illegal but widely tolerated. Among predominantly Muslim countries, Turkey has legalized prostitution and made it subject to a system of health checks for sex workers, and in Bangladesh prostitution is notionally legal but associated behaviors such as soliciting are prohibited. In some Asian countries, the involvement of children in prostitution has encouraged the growth of sex tourism by men from countries where such practices are illegal. Many Latin American countries tolerate prostitution but restrict associated activities. In Brazil, for example, brothels, pimping, and child exploitation are illegal. Two major developments in the 1980s radically altered attitudes towards prostitution. One was the global spread of AIDS, which raised concerns about the public health issues caused by prostitution. The prostitution industry, serving migrant laborers, in particular, was a factor in the rapid spread of AIDS in Africa. A second influential development was a renewal of feminist interest and the perspective that prostitution is both a consequence and a symptom of gender-based exploitation. Reflecting these shifting attitudes, from the 1980s the more neutral term sex worker was increasingly employed to describe those involved in commercial sex activities. It is difficult to generalize about the background or conditions of prostitutes because so much of what is known about them derives from studies of poorer and less privileged individuals, people who are more likely to come into contact with courts and official agencies. Much more is known about streetwalkers, for example, than about the higher status women who can be more selective about their clients and work conditions. According to available research, female sex workers are frequently economically disadvantaged and lack the necessary skills and training to support themselves. Many are drawn into prostitution and related crime at a young age, and drug addiction can be an aggravating factor. In a prostitution house, they are frequently managed by a male procurer, or pimp, or by a supervisor, or madam. Sexually transmitted diseases, some of which can be acquired through drug abuse, are among the health risks for prostitutes. In most cultures, male prostitution has received less public attention. Heterosexual male prostitution, males hired by or for females, is uncommon. Although homosexual male prostitution is likely to have existed in most societies, it was only in the 20th century that it was recognized as a major social phenomenon, and its prevalence increased in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. That's all for now. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thanks for watching.